Hare Krishna, welcome. Welcome everybody. This is Krishna Dasa. So today we are going to start chapter 15. And before we start, let me say the prayers to Guru and God, and then I will also play the Guru mantra. Om Ajnanaatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalake Chakshuram Militamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna.
गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः.
So once again, Hare Krishna, as I mentioned, today we are going to start chapter 15. And in today's session, we are going to cover shlokas 15.1 to 15.6. And instead of playing the recitation as I usually do, today Sandeep ji is going to recite the Sanskrit shlokas. So Sandeep ji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Guruji. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. So I'll start. Atha Panchadashodhyayah Shribhagavanuvacha Urdhvamoolamadhashakam Ashvattam Prahuravyayam Chandansi yasya Parnani Yastam Veda Savedavita Adashchortvam prasrutastasya shakaha guna pravruddha vishaya pravalaha adascha mulanyanu karmanubandhini manushya narupamasyeha tatopalabhyate nanto nachadir nacha sampratishta Ashvatthamenam suvirudamulam asangashastreణ dhrudhena chitva tatapadam tatparimargitavyam yasmin gatana nivartanti bhuyaha tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yata pravrutti prasruta purani निर्माणमोहाजितसङ्गदोषाः अध्यात्मनित्या विनिवृत्तकामाः द्वन्द्वैर्विमुक्ता सुखदुःखसंज्ञैः गच्छन्त्यमूढा पदमव्ययम् तत् न तद्भासयते सूर्यो न शशाङ्को न पावकः यद्गत्वा न निवर्तन्ते Tadhama paramam mama. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Sandeep ji, for the excellent divine recitation. Absolutely divine. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And who is reading the translations today?
Me, Guruji.
Okay, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. 15.1. They speak of an imperishable peepal tree having its root above and its branches below, whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. He who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. 15.2. The branches of this tree extend both upward and downward, nourished by the three gunas, the modes of material nature, with sense objects as their tender buds. The roots extending downwards binds living beings to the human world through karmic actions. 15.3. Its true form is not perceived here, neither its end, nor its beginning, nor its foundation. one must cut down this well-rooted people tree with the firm weapon of detachment. 15.4 Then one must search out the base of the tree, which is the Supreme Lord, from whom streamed forth the activity of the universe a long time ago, and having taken refuge in whom one never returns to the material world. 15.5 Those who are free from pride and delusion, who have overcome the evil of attachment, who dwell constantly on the self, on God, who are free from the desire to enjoy the senses, and are free from the dualities of pleasure and pain. Such undiluted personalities attain my imperishable eternal abode. 15.6 Neither the sun, nor the moon, nor fire can illuminate that supreme abode of mine. Having gone there, one does not return to this material world again. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much to both Simran and Sandeep ji. You have set a very divine and enthusiastic start to the chapter. I really appreciate that. So far, I think we have studied very deep spiritual insights and the timeless wisdom that Krishna has given us chapter after chapter. And by the time we finished chapter 14, the last chapter, it was known as Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga. And till that point, we already covered so many key topics. Like Krishna spoke about devotion, karma, nishkama karma, and the various paths to attaining spiritual realization. And especially in chapter 14, Krishna spoke about the gunas, sattva, raja, and tamas. I'm sure you all remember that. Okay, so now as we are continuing the journey through chapter 15 is known as Purushottama Yoga, Purusha Uttama or Uttama Purusha. And that is also known as the yoga of Supreme Person. So here it's helpful if we can quickly look back at chapter 14 and how the continuity is, and how do we connect that with what we are going to learn today. So I would also like to let you know that in material world we have this concept of value for money. So something may be very useful but also very expensive. Something may be very cheap but not expensive. But the key metrics we use value for money is something that is very useful for a very low cost. It may not be a good example, but I couldn't find a better way of explaining, because chapter 15 is one of the shortest chapters in the Bhagavad Gita. It has just 20 slokas, but the value for money, in other words, what it packs in those 20 slokas is very, 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 very profound, because there Krishna talks about himself. So let's quickly recap. What did we learn in chapter 14? We learned about the three gunas, of course. We learned how the gunas shape our destiny. Because why the gunas shape the destiny? Because they impact every aspect of our life. The gunas impact our thoughts, they impact our actions, they impact our speech. So much so that they also impact our next birth. That's what Krishna has already explained. And then Krishna spoke about how to transcend these gunas. And then he explained how devotion can be the supreme key, how we can use bhakti to actually transcend those gunas. So in essence, what was chapter 14? In a way, we can say that it was like a psychological map of the human mind, the human behavior. And chapter 14, Krishna explained how, everything around us, everything about us, it's all shaped by these gunas. And Krishna is urging Arjuna. And so when he is saying something to Arjuna, he's actually telling that to all of us. He's telling that to all of humanity. And he's telling Arjuna, be mindful of those gunas. Because, as they say, if you want to win over a adversary, the first step is understand the adversary. How can you win a battle if you don't even understand what the battlefield is and who the adversary is? So, Krishna says, first thing is be mindful. You all remember, we discussed that also. In other words, when somebody tells you something, how do you react? Before you react, spend at least a second or two asking yourself, is this reaction based on tamoguna? Is it based on rajoguna? What is going on? That 2 seconds is enough, because that's enough for your inner self, because your inner self is very efficient. Give it 2 seconds, that's all. It can do wonders. So if you're mindful, the more mindful we are, the better our chances of transcending these gunas. That is the gist. Okay. So then how does chapter 14 lead to chapter 15? So in 14, it was all about understanding the gunas, the material modes of material nature. And here we transition to focusing on the supreme. Okay, we understood, we learned about the gunas and we learned how they control the world. But Krishna tells us that we have to transcend these gunas. So then how do we actually transcend those gunas? And that is where 15th chapter comes into play, where in Purushottama Yoga, Krishna is answering this. In very brief, if I have to tell you what Krishna is pretty much talking about in this chapter, he's saying, if you can shift your focus to me, because I am the root, I am the source of everything, I am the source of even the gunas. So if you can shift your focus to me, then that is a means of overcoming those gunas. And Krishna is also laying a very firm foundation for strengthening our devotion. We already spoke about bhakti earlier. And here, Krishna is helping us make it more firm. How? He is helping us make our devotion firm by explaining a little more about himself. That's the beauty of this chapter. And then he's also helping us broaden the perspective, because, see, we all, I think we have discussed this earlier, that by design, we are all what we call as microcosms. So even in the Western theology, they will say that God made man in his image. So in our scriptures also, they explain this very beautifully, that the entire universe is contained within us. So that's what is known as a microcosm. In other words, if we can understand ourselves completely, then we can understand the universe, because there is a correlation, like there is a correlation between us and the earth also. Like earth is mostly water, we are also mostly water, so on and so forth. Okay, so in chapter 14, we were focusing on that microcosm of human nature. How at an individual level, how do we experience the world? How does a person get controlled by these gunas? All that was at a microcosm level. In chapter 15, Krishna is zooming out. He is zooming out and now talking about the macrocosm. In other words, we are a microcosm of what? And Krishna is explaining about that what, which is that supreme on whose image we are all created. And also Krishna will provide us more clarity about the soul and the soul's true nature, and how it is not temporary like the material world. So in other words, chapter 14 was diagnosing. It was a diagnosis, chapter 14. So chapter 14 is telling us, Krishna is using his stethoscope, keeping in our heart, and he's saying, I know the problem. The problem is you are suffering from those gunas. So 14 was diagnosis and 15 was, okay, how to heal, how to fix that. That is more one of the ways in which you can look at chapter 15. Okay. So what do you expect? What do we expect in chapter 15? So as I said, it has just 20 slokas. And the key theme or the key analogy Krishna uses here is the Ashvattha tree, which is the people tree. And he's using that to explain how the material world is temporary and how the spirit is permanent and so on and so forth. So We will be talking more about that now in slokas 1 to 6. And Krishna will talk about how to discriminate between that which is real and that which is unreal, and how to understand Krishna's position as the supreme personality, and what it means to be a Purushottama. And because Krishna is revealing himself to be that Purushottama, the supreme person, the best of all, because once we recognize that, once we recognize this supreme status of Krishna, then devotion will automatically strengthen. And that is the message Krishna had already given in many chapters, saying that bhakti is the key. And here he is going to help us strengthen our bhakti. See, the point is, you have to first acknowledge there is a problem. Once you acknowledge there is a problem, we have to seek for a solution. Correct? So Krishna has helped us understand what the problem is, and through his methodical approach, he has convinced us of what the problem is, and he has also told us what the solution is. He said the solution is surrender. Solution is, pretty much the grace of God, and he has given a process on how to open ourselves up for that grace. And then here he is going to strengthen that conviction. Okay, because see, the doctor will tell us this is your problem. Now you have to have faith in the doctor. You have the faith in the doctor. Doctor has given you a diagnosis. He has said this is your problem, and then you are asking the doctor, okay, how do I fix it? And doctor says, okay, you have to do A, B, C, D. Okay, so you come out of the clinic with this instruction that says, okay, I now understand my problem and I know what to do to fix it, but are you really having the conviction? How will you have the conviction? Somebody has to come and say, oh, this doctor is the best doctor on the planet, he has fixed millions of people, and so on and so on. Suddenly then you get that conviction. You are like, oh, the doctor said ABCD, I'm going to follow it to the letter, just like that. Now Krishna is revealing his Purushottama aspect. Okay, so let us now delve into the slokas 1 to 6 that we just heard. So there are only 20 slokas, and it is summarizing the entire essence of the Vedas. That is why I say it is value for money. In 20 slokas, the entire Vedas have been pretty much condensed and summarized. So if I have to categorize it beautifully, we can look at it as the first part. The 15th chapter helps us understand is what is the world. In other words, the material world. Second part, it helps us understand who am I. And the third part, it helps us understand who is God. And the fourth part, it helps us understand what is the relationship between me, the material world, and God. You see, so in essence, it covers all dimensions of our life and how to transcend. So it all starts with the Ashvattha tree. Does anybody think, or does anybody remember we talking about Ashvattha tree earlier also in the Bhagavad Gita? Okay, I have one hand. It's also known as people tree. Only one hand? Oh my God. Okay. Yes, Tolataji, when did we?
Yeah, it was in 10th chapter, Vibhuti Yoga, 10.26, where
Excellent.
he has explained. Yeah.
Oh, she even remembers the sloka number. You should give a applause.
No, only some of them only, not all.
This is commendable. So thank you. So 10.26, you are absolutely right. Ashaji, you think you want to recite that? 10.26?
Yes. Hare Krishna. Ashvattha sarva vrukshanam devarshinam cha naradah gandharvanam chitraratah siddhanam kapilo munihi. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So there, Krishna says, among all the trees, I am the people tree, which is Ashvattha. Among celestial sages, I am Narada. Among Gandharvas, I am Chitraratha. And among the Siddhas, I am sage Kapila. So there, Krishna has already spoken about the people tree, the Ashvattha tree. And here, he is now diving deep into that. Okay, so what is the significance? The significance of this Ashvattha tree is, like I said, a microcosm. Like I said, we are all a microcosm, right? Just like that, the Ashvattha tree is also a microcosm of how the material world and the spiritual world, they are all laid out and how they are related. That's why Krishna is using that example, because even previously we discussed how the Ashvattha tree looks upside down because the roots are on the top. So that is illustrating that the source of creation is the spiritual domain, while the branches and leaves, they are extending and they are the material domain, the material realm. And the material realm is fleeting. It is temporary. It is subject to continuous change. The beauty is, this concept is contained in the word itself. So, if you directly look for the meaning of Ashvattha, you will not get it. But I've looked at some explanations from some scholars, Sanskrit scholars, and they have very beautifully, they have broken this word down. So Ashvattha itself, you can break it into three parts: A, Shva and Sta. So A basically means not or without. In other words, Hinsa means violence. Ahimsa means non-violence. So you put a, it pretty much negates, it becomes not. Shva. Shva means tomorrow. Okay. And Sta. Sta basically means to stand or to remain or permanent. So now if you see a, Shva, Sta together, it basically says that which does not remain the same tomorrow. So the word itself contains the hint of what it signifies. I mean, the world may appear to be enduring, but it's always ever changing. And the Ashvattha tree, one of the specialities of the Ashvattha tree is it has roots on the top, but the moment one of the roots touch the ground, it gives rise to another. And so in other words, it creates an illusion of something that's forever. Because it creates that illusion, because every time that root will go and touch, and then it continues, and so we get this illusion that, but it is an illusion at the end of the day. That's what Krishna is trying to explain here. As you know, even Lord Buddha, he sat under this tree, the same tree, to get enlightenment, and because of that, this tree is also known as the Bodhi tree. And Bodhi, basically, that means the tree of enlightenment. So Krishna is then explaining how the human form is similar to this Ashvattha tree, because this is the beautiful comparison Krishna is making. He's saying that in the human form, the soul is accountable for the karmas, and that is like the trunk of the tree, and the branches are extending both upwards and downwards. Now, if the soul has good karmic account, it gets birth in upward branches. So this upward branches is what Krishna earlier spoke about, those higher planets. Bhu, Bhuva, Swar, Mahas, Janas, Tapas, Satya. We spoke about all of those higher planets. And if the soul has bad karmic account, then it gets born in the lower branches, and which are like lower planets. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, and all those interesting places going all the way till Patala and Naraka. In olden days, when older people used to get annoyed, they would say, "You will go to Narak." There was no Atala Vitala also. Directly, they will put you into the lowermost realm. Yeah. So, and the leaves of this tree, Krishna is comparing that to the Vedic teachings. The Vedic teachings that provide the guidance for moral and spiritual living. So Krishna is saying that they act as the compass. They will help the souls discern right from wrong and prescribe rituals for material rewards and all of that. So all of that Vedas is saying, those you can assume to be the leaves. Nevertheless, although it is such a beautiful analogy, where the tree has upper planets, lower planets, it denotes the soul's journey, it denotes Vedas and all of that, it is still an illusion. Like what a gardener does, gardeners, they usually look at plants, and you may think the plant is perfect, but the gardener will feel the need to prune those branches and give it some shape. And just like that, the spiritual practitioner, they have to cut through these entangling roots of worldly attachments. That is the poetic message given by Krishna here. Because first of all, you have to acknowledge that everything is impermanent, illusory. And once you acknowledge that, then we have to look beyond that which is temporary and focus on lasting spiritual joy. In other words, chapter 14 spoke about all the reasons why it is an illusion, maya, gunas, and why those gunas are the culprits, and they create all this illusion of whatever we see and all of that. So we have to cut through that illusion and focus on spiritual joy and everlasting. So what is everlasting? That which is everlasting is Purushottama. That which is everlasting is that absolute. So that is how the continuity is. And so Krishna is reminding us. He is saying that the fundamental stepping stone, to make this kind of transition and to transcend this material world is detachment, vairagya. So that is like, in other words, Krishna has also said that even to advance in bhakti, even to strengthen bhakti, you have to first develop vairagya. Vairagyam comes first. You remember in the previous chapter, we also spoke about kaivalyam. Kaivalyam is when you have already achieved that state of vairagyam and realization that everything is temporary and that is permanent. And that is, Krishna is saying, a prerequisite, because your devotion is going to get strengthened only after that. Okay. So I don't think we need to go into details. We have already understood vairagyam. Correct? Does vairagyam mean that we are indifferent and we don't have empathy? No. Does anybody want to explain what is vairagyam in very brief? Like, they say that if you understood something, you should be able to explain it very briefly. Yes, Rajesh ji, you want to explain?
Can we say it's a non-attachment?
Correct. Non-attachment. Excellent. So, that is vairagyam, absolutely. But what does this detachment or non-attachment mean? So, it does not mean that we are indifferent. It does not mean that we don't have empathy or compassion. What it basically means is we are not impacted by the dualities. We are not impacted. So, this is what Krishna says, be in the world, but not be impacted by the world. So, Shitoshna Sukha Dukkada, that sentence, if you remember. Okay, so, when it is hot, okay, don't try to run away from that heat. Deal with it. When it is cold, okay, it is cold. Deal with it. He's not saying, you don't care if it is hard, you don't care. You care, but you don't let it impact you. You're not trying to run away now. And neither are you trying to run towards. All your life you should not say like, oh, today it is cold here. I'm going to go travel to a place which is hot, and then all my life I'm just going to hot places. That is a kind of attachment. You understand? Okay. Because Krishna says that is a very important, because otherwise what happens? All our life we are only running. We are running either towards or away from things. So when you say detachment leads to samatvam. Samatvam makes you a siddha pragya. And from there you stop running and you are able to then focus on that which is permanent. So this is the whole mechanism. And we already know that devotion, Krishna has spoken so many times, because when the heart is filled with devotion, then there is no room for worries. There is no room for worrying about these temporary material discomforts. Because once we understand that there is something beyond all of this, then naturally you will just deal with it instead of getting overly worried about it. It is like, we are living in a rental house, and that, your lease is going to expire in 6 months. and then you're not going to live there anymore. Then if that house has a leak, does that bother you? No, because we just say, oh, it's just rental, it's just 6 months, then I'll be gone from this house. So then that leak no longer bothers you. But the moment you assume that this house is somehow yours, the moment you assume that somehow this house is permanent, then every small thing disturbs you. If there is a leak, you can't sleep at night. If there is a paint coming out, you're worried about why. So what is the difference? That is what Krishna is beautifully explaining. He's saying, once you understand that all of this is temporary, be it 6 months or 6 years, it is still temporary, and there is something permanent, and once you understand that, then you will deal with the issues without getting overly anxious or worried about these things. So it's such a life lesson for all of us. So, the material world, as we said, it seems eternal because, why? Because of all the countless jivas who are continuously taking birth, and then they go through all the various stages, janam, mrityu, jara, vyadi, and then they disappear, and then they again come back, and so it gives an illusion as if this material world is permanent. It's not. So this kind of wisdom, the wisdom of discernment, wisdom of discerning what is permanent and what is temporary, that pretty much is the essence of all Vedic scriptures. That's what they're all trying to lead us to. I mean, they use many flowery words and hymns and all of that, but at the end of it, it is Aham Brahmasmi, right? They are trying to lead us towards that discernment that helps us understand what is temporary, what is permanent, and why we should now focus on that which is permanent. So, like each jiva or each individual soul, it is part and parcel of the same divine that we have already studied. So just like that, each leaf is linked to the branch, and the branch is linked to the trunk, and the trunk is linked to the root. So Krishna is again drawing that analogy, and he's saying we should understand this organic relationship. So the soul will transition from identifying with external forms to eventually recognizing its bond with that supreme, its bond with that ultimate Purushottama, and that realization is what he says then dissolves this illusion. And once the illusion is gone, see, because birth, death, old age, suffering, these are all illusions. That is what Krishna is saying. Because the soul never dies. The soul is never born. So once the illusion goes away, then there cannot be any more birth, death. And that is the whole point. That is what Krishna is explaining. So he's saying, once we realize this truth, that this is temporary, that is permanent, and I am that, he says, then you are done. Your job is done. You are free. Now, let us quickly revisit the three modes of nature. So, just like the tree is nourished by water, our material existence is nourished by the gunas. And because they fuel the growth of the material realm, just like the water is fueling the growth of the tree. And we also discussed when a person is primarily associated with sattva, they are inclined to virtuous qualities. And when they are inclined with virtuous qualities, then they are going to move higher, higher branches, higher planes. And when they are in rajas, it's a very risky place to be, because from rajas, you can easily fall down to tamas. And once you are in tamas, you keep going down. So all that we have already studied. Okay, as per Krishna's explanation, the birds on the tree, they represent all material desires and sense objects. And Krishna says that each time we indulge with these desires, we are reinforcing the cycle of action and reaction, cause and effect. And that leads to the ever-expanding offshoots of karma. So the way the roots touch and something new again comes, he says that is very similar to karmic action, karmic reaction, and how it is ever expanding, like it is a cycle. You all remember that Krishna had very strongly told us that we cannot satisfy desires. How many people remember that desires cannot be fulfilled? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Ashaji is also there. Okay, Ekansh, why desires cannot be fulfilled?
Because it will again arise more and more.
Any example you remember that we spoke of?
Not completely.
Okay, anybody else remembers that example that, yes, Chitraji?
It's Mirage, Mritrishna.
Okay. Migatrishna, where we keep running behind an illusion. Okay. Sandeep ji, you want to add anything?
It is like fueling the fire.
Exactly. Like desire is like that fire, and you are saying I will fulfill it means you are going to pour more ghee. You're going to pour put some more wood in that fire, and then you are going to say now the fire will be satisfied. Is it going to get satisfied? It's going to get bigger, and once it gets bigger, you need more fuel. So similarly, Krishna had said that this is one of the reasons why we should not try to run behind these desires. We should not have this illusion that we can somehow fulfill. You know, a lot of especially older people will say, मेरी ये इच्छा है, मेरी वो इच्छा है. But ठीक है, वो इच्छा रहेगा, मतलब वो आप उसको you cannot fulfill it. You know. Instead, the real solution is to now understand that these ichchas cannot be fulfilled, and my only ichcha should be the ichcha for liberation, and my only desire should be desire for the grace of that divine. You know, that should be the right approach, and that's what Krishna is trying to teach here. And because he's saying that if we keep running behind these desires and if we are entangled, then we cannot see the real nature. No, in other words, we cannot even comprehend the illusory nature of this world. And if we cannot comprehend that which is an illusion, how can we then perceive that which is beyond that illusion? See, it's like, you are on an ocean and you are surfing. Surfing, or whatever the right word is in your part of the world. So you are looking at the waves and you are playing with the waves, and all you can perceive is the waves. Correct? The unending waves. But is that what the ocean is about? The waves are an insignificant part of the ocean. The ocean has so much more. And how can we begin to comprehend that is if we can stop getting entangled in those waves. As long as we are too busy with the waves, how will we even know or even perceive that there is, 100 miles of awesomeness to this ocean? That is what Krishna is saying. So those desires, those ichchas, they are all like those waves. And if we are engaging, if we are busy with them all the time, how can we perceive that which is beyond? Sulataji reminded us last time of how the sand in the shore will always keep getting shifted every time a wave hits it. But the sand which is deep down, it is always stable. It doesn't get disturbed. So that is what we are trying to understand here. Okay, so we have understood now. We are trying to get this idea of desires or temporary. We are getting to get an idea of material world is illusory. We are getting an idea of we need to transcend the gunas. Okay, and then the question came is, okay, I now understand all of this. Now, how do I actually get out of this illusory stuff? How do I actually now do the transcending part? And that is where Krishna says, go back and revise whatever I have taught so far, starting with Amanitvam and Adambitvam. He says, you go revise, you will get an idea of everything. I've already told you, I've given you the complete process, I've given you the manual. And once you understood that, you will automatically get into a mode of surrender. And I will strengthen your surrender in this chapter by talking about me and talking about how I am the Purushottama. And once that happens, then the Lord will bestow the grace. He will bestow the power to transcend. So the ultimate thing is for us to realize that we have to transcend. And it is not in our power to do it by our own efforts. It has to come through the grace of Krishna. So see, so many things have to first happen. First, you have to understand that this is all temporary. This is not what we should be running behind. Okay, that will happen only when you have some humility. Otherwise, the acceptance will never come. You see? But once that comes, then you need to have the desire to now get out of this. Okay. And then that knowledge should come, wisdom should come, that ultimately it has to be the grace of Krishna that is going to help me succeed in this effort. And to get the grace of Krishna, I need to surrender. And surrender will come with bhakti. Okay, and how do you strengthen your bhakti? Krishna says, okay, I'll tell you more about myself. That will help you strengthen your bhakti, and then all the dots will connect and all the pieces will fall together and you will succeed. That is the whole idea. So if you look at Shloka 15.5, which Sandeep ji beautifully recited, the one that starts with Nirmana Moha Jit Sanga Dosha, that pretty much gives you a formula. It's a concise formula there in that shloka. It says, those who are free from pride and delusion, who have overcome the evil of attachment, who dwell constantly on the self and on God, who are free from the desire to enjoy the senses, and are free from the dualities of pleasure and pain, such undiluted personalities, they attain my imperishable eternal abode. So if you break it down, first, relinquish ego-driven pride. How many times Krishna has to tell this? You know, that itself gives us an idea of how tricky that problem is. You know, pride. Very, very tricky. So first, that is what Krishna is again calling out. Second, overcoming delusions. One of the things you can do to overcome delusions is be regularly going through Krishna's teachings, regularly reading those scriptures, Shravan Manan, Nididhyasan. The third, Krishna says, then free ourselves from attachments, Vairagyam. That's what we discussed a few minutes ago. You know, in other words, look at everything as a service to Lord rather than as your own enjoyment. You know, even if you are doing a good deed, even if you are helping somebody, let it not be because it makes you feel good. Let it be because that is a service to Krishna that you are doing. Okay? That is the message. Fourth, constantly abide in the self. Remember our eternal spiritual identity and remember that we are that. Transcending desires by recognizing that they can never be fulfilled. That's what we just discussed. And the sixth, remain unaffected by life's dualities. In other words, happiness, distress, heat, cold, you know, don't let them disturb you. Okay, be an observer and try to reach the state of samatvam. And this 6 things is in that shloka. So that is like the formula. So if you put it all together and if you can try to tick mark all of them, then you are pretty much successful on the path of transcending these gunas and realizing that supreme. So we can achieve this through daily prayer, meditation, chanting. Very important. Some of you are now following the Kriya path, which is very, very effective. You know. See, the essence of the teaching is that liberation will come when we shift the focus. Shift the focus from what? Shift the focus from those endless branching tree of desires. Shift it from there to that absolute Purushottama. And how can we do that? Cultivate amanitvam, adambitvam, and unwavering devotion. You know, that is how we can rise above this illusion. As you can see, Krishna is keeping on reiterating the importance of samatvam. You know, samatvam. You will see this so many times because very, very important. Because samatvam is not theory. It's impossible. You know, we cannot just theorize samatvam and say that I've understood it. Samatvam has to be practiced. And the practice is a lifelong. It is kind of a way of life. You know, samatvam is not a goal. Samatvam is a way of life. It has to be constant. It has to be all the time. And of course, Vairagyam, Krishna has again said. So we can, I think we have spoken about some examples in the past. Like for example, let us say you are attached to a particular food. And I'm giving you a very, I would say gross, or gross is not the right word. I'm just giving you a very simple way, but you can devise your own mechanism. Every one of us, we have our own way of thinking. So you choose what is most appealing to you. But I'm giving a very simple example. Let us say you are attached to, say, chana bhatura, and that chana bhatura made by a particular restaurant. You like it, and now you are getting extremely, attached, and you want to go there every day. so that is becoming a hindrance now. It's like very strong attachment. So one simple way is one day you should try to go inside the kitchen of that restaurant and see how they actually make it. You will look at the dirty utensils, you will see the unhygienic, how the cooks are unhygienic and all of that, and automatically that will start feeling less attractive to you. You see what I'm saying? So in other words, what was attracting you was your ignorance of the negative qualities of what you are attracted to. You are just looking at the illusion. You are just looking at, they are very stylishly presenting it. They will keep that half-cut lemon on the corner of the plate and everything looks so jazzed up. And because you are focusing on that, that is the illusion. Once you realize that this is not real, and the best way is try to find the flaws. Try to find the negative aspects as well. Once you do that, automatically there goes away. See, this is the difference between, infatuation and love. Because infatuation means you look at somebody and suddenly you think, I cannot live without that person. Really? Because till that point you were living okay without that person, right? Then what happened? What happened is we are looking at that external, we are looking at that illusion. We are only focusing on what appeals to us. We are not focusing on the other 99.99% that we have not even paid attention to. But once you pay attention to that, and if you are still attracted to the person, then that is love. You see? And so Krishna is saying, try to find this kind of, incompleteness or this kind of negative aspects, and that will help you quickly develop a distaste, because almost everything that we are attracted to, almost everything, if you go a little deeper, you will realize that you are only attracted to the illusion of what it is and not to what it really is. So if you spend some time to actually go deep, and even, I'm not saying go deep about God, even about things you are attracted to. I like this candy, I like this dress, I like this chappal, I like this whatever. Go a little deeper and you will yourself realize that there are other aspects which you have overlooked, and eventually you will become very objective about it instead of becoming so, attached to it. But again, this is only a quick tip, and this is not the absolute, because see, this kind of vairagya is also temporary, because you will get detached from one thing and then you will get attached to something else. So this is just a tip for, chronic cases. If you have a severe case of attachment you're not able to deal with, this is a quick fix for that. For example, I spoke about chana bhatura, and I spoke about how you just look at the kitchen and you stop liking it, but then your mind will play games and it will say, okay, but the chana bhatura of that hotel is better because, there they have a cleaner kitchen, and, So what I'm saying is, this is a temporary fix, but at least if you are having a very big problem with any attachment, a temporary fix is also good. But keep in mind, it is temporary. What is permanent? Shift the focus. Use this temporary relief you get, and instead of now running behind yet another attachment, now use that period to shift the focus and say, let me instead focus on God, let me instead focus on the spiritual evolution. That is the whole idea here. So, because permanent vairagya is only possible once you understand the real nature of God, and then you will be totally attached to that. And once you are so strongly attached to that, you will not have any bandwidth to be attached to anything else. That is the whole idea. Okay. And then in the end, 15.6, I think Krishna is briefly describing where he lives, his divine abode, and he says that is self-luminous. He doesn't need any sun or moon or fire to light it up. It is self-luminous. And on the contrary, the material world is created by Maya, and it is full of defects and full of dualities. Whereas the divine realm is what is called Satchitanand, that is full of bliss. And, so in other words, I think Krishna is giving us that sales pitch, marketing pitch. And he's saying, see, where you are, that's not good enough. Where I'm asking you to go, that's awesome. That's self-luminous. That's Satchidanand, And once you're bought into that, then Krishna is giving you all the tools required to reach that abode. So that is what the 15th chapter is about. I hope it all makes sense. Hare Krishna. I think I can stop talking. And if anybody had anything to add or any questions, please feel free. It's your satsang. Okay, everybody is very deep in thought, so I appreciate that. Okay. Yes, Tulataji, you wanted to say something?
This 15.5, it again reminds us of that shloka 11.55, which is the gist of Bhagavad Gita.
Exactly.
Mat karmo, mat paramo, mat bhakta, sangavarjita. And
Yes.
now nirvairi.
That is what Shankaracharya had said as the gist of Bhagavad Gita. You are very right. And so that is the gist of the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. And this 15.5 is the gist of what we need to do to internalize those teachings and transcend the gunas as is asked of us. How to actually implement it and go. So take 11.55 and ask yourself, how do I implement this and how do I actually, overcome what I'm supposed to overcome? Then the answer is 15.5, basically. So, thank you, Solataji. That's a very good reminder, certainly. Yeah, see, as I'm saying, we are making good progress. We are already in 15th chapter. Before you realize, we would have done 18th chapter, But what is important is, if we have to introspect. So it has to become like a constant thing. And like tomorrow you are sitting and you are thinking about, oh, how is that movie? How is this movie? Catch your thoughts and say, okay, can I use this time to now think a little bit more about what I learned? Think a little bit more about how am I actually supposed to make, because nobody gets more than 24 hours, nobody gets extra time. The key is in utilizing whatever time we have and, focusing on prioritizing that which is more important. Is my whole, it's not my thing. This is what Krishna also says, that shift your focus to that which is permanent. And that way, you will have enough time to even be a Jivana Mukta. That is what even Shankaracharya has said. So with that, I think I can stop talking. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you all again. I think 2 more sessions we will be done with 15th chapter. So eagerly looking forward to the next session. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guruji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guruji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.